Hello, welcome back for Chapter 2 of Meet Me Under the Mistletoe. With the click of the lock, I popped my right hip against the stiff wooden frame. I would get my landlord, Mr. Collins, to come around and fix this. Everything in my life needed fixing, it seemed. My shop was dark, still asleep as it waited for the day to begin. My work boots dodged metal bins filled with ribbons and decorative grass. The hum of the walk-in fridge lulled in the background as if it waited for the shop to come to life. The air was full of a symphony of fragrances, roses, sandalwood, and chocolate. At the front of the store, I flipped the open sign and unlocked the door for the masses to enter. I didn't expect a stampede, but I had several orders to fill today. I flicked the light switch on and brought the store to life. Last year, after the regretful incident, I decided to open my own flower shop, the Shrinking Violet. And let me tell you, Dana Anderson is no shrinking violet. Some folk around town made fun of me when I opened my store, thinking I was attracting the wrong type of attention for what I had done. Ironically, I named my store just that because I didn't want to become a shrinking violet, someone who lived under the shadow of a man. I played with the small silver rose on a chain around my neck. I once promised someone special that I'd always be true to myself, and that was a promise I was doing my best to keep. Nevertheless, I persisted. Even though I had a few more hearts to win over, my store had become a success, and soon I was able to pay off my loan. I was proud of what I had made for myself, even if it came at the cost of a broken heart or two. At my workstation, I turned on the power bar that illuminated the festive lights in the shop. In addition to the usual flower arrangements, a miniature train which carried tiny passengers choo-chooed around the table that brought to life a winter wonderland holiday village. Children tossed snowballs while carolers sang around a twinkling Christmas tree. At the checkout, overstuffed teddy bears wore their finest plaid bows, eagerly awaiting the arms of a cuddly child. I ran my finger over a furry ear and decided to tuck one under the counter for Ruby's stocking. Recently, I had had mixed feelings about the holidays. As I sipped the last of my coffee, I contemplated spending this holiday season alone, unless you counted Ruby. My parents were off visiting Aunt Carol in Toronto. I declined the invitation to join them, afraid that I might not be able to contain my emotions. After all, over the past year, I had made many life changes, not all of which had been working for me. Being an independent woman sometimes has its downfalls. I shook my head. I couldn't think about that. Instead, I found the order request for today and busily got to work while the latest holiday country song played on low in the background. I must have been lost in thought as I didn't hear Sabrina Morrison, our local postal woman and my best friend, barge in the door with a handful of mail and a latte. "Here you go, love," she pounded her fist on the hardwood surface. She released the paper contents from her hand, and they scattered amongst the white daisy arrangements I was piecing together. "What's on the agenda for today?" she asked while taking a swig of her to-go cup of coffee. Her rosy cheeks popped when she smiled. "Thank you." I reached out for the latte. Sabrina knew my love languages were acts of service in the form of delicious treats and quality time. "I'm working on an anniversary arrangement for Mr. Patterson. 40 years married." I smiled weakly. I wonder when it would be my turn, if I even cared to date again after what happened. Sabrina looked down the arrangement and said without filter, "I love daisies as much as the next person, but the cheap bastard couldn't sprung for roses? Am I right?" She exposed her callous working fingers and delicately plucked petals from one of the discarded flowers. He loves me not." She laughed and got lost in thought before shaking her head back to reality. "Well, I don't know if he loves me," she concluded as she adjusted her mail satchel and the conversation. I paused to look at her. Of course Wyatt loves you. Don't be silly. Wyatt Green, my best friend since grade school, had been with Sabrina for the last 10 years, with no proposal in sight. I don't know what's wrong with men sometimes. I don't know what's wrong with me sometimes. I think he loves working on the cars in the shop and drinking with the guys after work. Wyatt worked for his dad at one of the auto body shops on the edge of town. Truthfully, he had been allergic to commitment, but it was hard not to be when your mom got up and left your dad without explanation. Sinners, remember? Well, I think he'll get his wits about him soon enough. Men's brains develop slower, remember? We both stifle giggles. Anyways, I should get going. Message me after work. We can finish our jigsaw puzzle like two old maids. I rolled my eyes at her as the chime signaled her exit. Sabrina and I had resorted to puzzles this last year. I didn't want to be seen in public. I didn't want to be made fun of or hit on. I simply wanted to be left alone to figure out my life. It hadn't been until recently that I joined her and Wyatt for trivia at Lucky's pub. I was still somewhat stuck in hibernation mode, but I needed to start living my life out loud again. After I finished wrapping the arrangement in cellophane and placed it in the fridge, I cleared my workstation and rifled through the mails Sabrina had left me. Bills, toss. Adverts for Pyramid Schemes cosmetics the women in town were selling, toss. An order request set in the to-do pile, and finally a red envelope with no return address. It piqued my interest. I inspected the envelope with the eye of a detective. It felt too flimsy to be a holiday card. I got out my silver letter opener and sliced my way inside like a skilled surgeon. A single piece of writing paper slid out into the palm of my hand. It took a minute to ponder, who could this be possibly from? Who writes letters these days? I carefully unfolded the paper, smoothing out the creases. I read it not once, twice, but 3 times. Dear Dana, your shop is a huge success. I knew you could do it. I'm so proud of you. You're the most ambitious person I've ever known. You inspire me. X. Who was X? And what kind of letter was this? Where did it come from? I racked my brain. I couldn't think of anyone who would sign their name like that. Was this a joke? Most people in town were friendly and approachable. Did people think I wasn't approachable? Did they think they had to write an unsigned letter to me? This made no sense. I tried not to spiral, but it was too late. I was spiraling like it was an Olympic sport. I'd win a gold medal. Perhaps this was some silly prank. But what would the end game of this prank be? Hopefully it wasn't that Thompson boy who packed my groceries after school. He seemed to have a bit of a crush on me, but the handwriting seemed too mature for a high school kid. No, I shook my head. It's gotta be someone I know. But who? That's it, I gasped. I didn't know who the sender was, but I knew who to ask. She knew all the town gossip.